What's happening, all you dudes and dudettes? This is Dudes Talking Freedom back at you once again. This is Luke.
And I'm Jeremy.
And we want to thank you for joining us on the Dudes Talking Freedom podcast. We're brought to you by Warriors for Freedom, a nonprofit that creates pathways to engage service members, to help veterans and their families prevent suicide, foster camaraderie, and help them live their best lives. Check them out at warriorsforfreedom.org. All right, folks, we have Janelle Davis, who is a Texas school lawyer, and Aileen Blachowski, who is an education freedom activist. And we'll be talking freedom, education, and whatever else we want to talk about. So let's get into it, shall we?
It's been a while since we've been talking about this. I'm psyched to have y'all in studio. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We are all on, I mean, you guys more so, but on the front lines of the battle with student education in the state of Texas. And I know that you guys are spending a lot of time down in Austin with the legislators, as well as, you know, keeping a very close eye and finger on the pulse of what's going on in the local schools. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got to this mess that we are all in?
Well, I got in this mess because of her, so maybe she should start. I really kind of started paying attention to school issues in the spring of 2021 when Governor Abbott lifted the statewide mask mandate. I think, like many parents in Prosper, we expected our school board to follow suit. We had been told they were going to follow suit as soon as the statewide mandate was lifted, and then they didn't. They voted unanimously to keep the mandate in place. And so I started attending school board meetings. I started asking questions, and things kind of just developed from there. I met Aileen in the fall of that year. And we just really quickly bonded. I think we have the same heart for the issues that are facing our kids in public school. We have the same heart for some of the problems, and we feel similarly about the solutions to those problems. And so we both started volunteering our time with a statewide group of parents called Texas Education 911. That's parents all over the state of Texas that really just identified some key issues in public schools and then focused on, okay, these are the problems, but we don't want to just be complaining all the time about the problems. Like, what solutions can we offer? And so that group of folks has been working for at least a year, probably, to get ready for this legislative session and trying to come up with solutions that will help some of the problems that we're seeing all over the state in our schools. So that's the really short version of how I got involved with Texas Education 911 and with just paying attention to school-related issues in general.
How long have you been in Texas?
So I have been in Texas since 2007.
Okay.
I'm not originally from Texas. I grew up in Florida. I came here for undergrad and went to TCU in Fort Worth.
Cool.
Left for law school, went to Southern California for 3 years and decided living out there wasn't affordable. So I moved back in 2007 after law school.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. So, I've been back since 2007.
Awesome. How about you?
How about me? Okay, I'm a mom of 6 kids, and my kids range in age from 25 down to 9. So I've been in the education game for a really long time. I know it doesn't look like it, but anyway, we lived in California until the fall of 2020. And you can imagine Mussolini being, who he is and stuff.
Mussolini.
It was,
I love that.
It was, actually I'll tell you what, there's a couple of things. These are great stories. Like the day that Newsom closed the beach was the day before my youngest daughter was going to go in for a medical procedure where she had to go under anesthesia and be in an upper body cast. And every time before surgery, we went to the beach, but he closed the beach. And I said, not today, Newsom.
Yeah.
And so I drove my kids down to the beach, and we went to the beach.
Nice.
And we brought her
Such
little
a rebel.
We brought her little teddy bear who always got casted with her. And the last time she got a cast removed, we forgot to ask them to take Fluffy's cast off. So they didn't. So he was still casted. And I just told my daughter and the other kids, I said, run right into the water, go. And I said, if anybody comes around here, tell me one word, I'm going to show them this and say, do you see this? That's her tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't you dare.
Yeah.
Don't you dare.
Yeah.
It's actually like a constitutional right in California to access public beaches. So I thought, it's just accessing my constitutional right. And then the last thing that broke the straw for me, the straw that broke the camel's back, was we went to the park, but Newsom had let all the criminals out of jail, like 5,000 in one set and then 3,000 in another. And I lived in a really conservative, insulated neighborhood. So, things were starting to open up. And so I said, hey, let's go to the park. We'll grab some takeout. We'll play. And we're sitting at the bench eating our rolled tacos. And my daughter says she wants to use the bathroom. And I'm like, okay, well, hold on. You're going to look around and see who's around you. Double ankle bracelet, dude, right there.
Really?
And I just went, oh, dear God, I cannot raise my kids here. I can't even my neighborhood park. And I just told her, you're not going to the bathroom. We're just going home. And we did. And I went home and I told my husband, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. This is just not a place where we can keep raising our family. So we moved here. And my husband said, well, if this is a freedom move, then I'm getting free of all of that tuition money we pay. And our kids are going to public school. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, okay. Wow, okay. And then we both said, but it's Texas. It's going to be fine, right?
Yeah, that was what we thought too.
Not fine. I had been involved with helping other parents in California. We ran a statewide movement of grassroots activist parents fighting education issues. And I just thought I was there to help. I didn't know it was a proving ground and a preparation for what I was about to experience here. And that's exactly what it's been.
Well, who would have thought that, and we've met so many people from California that have come here, and it's California conservatives, and they've come here to save Texas. They had no idea they were coming here to save Texas.
Our wonderful video production guy, Daniel.
My wife.
Originally from California. By way of Vegas.
Aileen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? When you go around the state and you meet up with, I've met so many folks too in Austin, and they'll say, do you know some of the most ardent supporters of these bills that are trying to take back ground in our schools or in our culture? They're like, they're Californians. And I said, see, we've been painted with a broad brush.
Well, a lot of people don't really, so I've been here 4 years and we came from Jersey. I'm originally from the Boston area. My wife was from Jersey. We were there in Jersey for 8 years before we came down here. And, it was her decision. And I was just like the good husband, like, all right, you want to go? We'll go. We kind of saw,
it was that easy, huh?
She beat me up. She beat me up for a little bit. It was like having our third kid. Like took a little while, but I kind of warmed up to it
for a while.
Hey, look, less than 4 is a bore.
Yeah. That's what I've heard, right, Luke? So
I got more than that.
We've been here about 4 years, and same reason we moved down here specifically to Prosper because of the schools. And initially we thought it was great, and then COVID exposed some things, and we didn't. I think we were kind of ignorant to all that stuff until COVID. And one of the things I've noticed since being down here is that there's a lot of people that aren't from here. And I would argue probably more than 50% of the people that I meet down here in the North Texas area in general are transplants from elsewhere in the country: Chicago, Minnesota, a lot from California, the Northeast.
Washington,
some Florida,
Oregon,
Southeast, like
Michigan,
everywhere. I mean,
Illinois.
It's all over the place, right? It's everywhere. And
it's like that Johnny Cash song, seems like,
Yeah.
I'm from Utah, dude. I don't even know.
I'm from everywhere, man.
Yeah.
I've been everywhere,
Yeah,
man.
that's right.
I can't believe I said that.
And so I think a lot of parents are in this similar situation because they, especially parents who have kids that are in maybe elementary, middle school that are just starting to get their feet wet with school systems and really understand how they operate, how legislation occurs and what that whole process is like. And no one was really paying attention before. Like I've said this before, we've kind of, as a society, abdicated the rearing of our children to the teachers in the school, treating them as if they're babysitters, and they're not. They are teachers, right? But even the teachers have a box that they have to work within, right? And a lot of them are great. Some of them, I take issue with, but most of them I think are great. And they're working inside of this box that they've been educated within, and that the curriculum or the education system that has been designed around what they can and cannot do. And as a parent, a lot of parents are starting to wake up to what that box looks like. And they're like, well, wait a minute, like maybe we should be coloring outside the lines a little bit here. And so can you talk a little bit about, because I think a lot of people who listen to our show and then everyone else who is going to listen to this one, because you guys are on it, they want to understand better how this whole system works. Because I just don't think people get it.
I know. I wish we had the whiteboard. We could do the thing. We could do the thing,
Like
show you the football
those
moves.
UPS commercials.
Yeah. X's and O's. It's all X's and O's.
Tons of them.
Right. So the system in terms of the education system or the legislative?
Both.
Right.
I mean, both. Like,
Sure.
I just think people don't know enough about either.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't.
Right.
I'm like.
So I can draw a few distinctions for you.
Ignorant to
Okay,
most of it.
distinctions about Texas. Because I think this is really important.
Sure.
It's one thing to just talk about the system. It's so boring. But let's talk about what's different about Texas, because I think that is something that even if you had been paying attention before, if you weren't, what you need to know is what's different here. Number one, the legislature is a biennial legislature. It meets for 6 months every 2 years. We do not have a full-time legislature, and most states do. And so they're always around and they're always able to propose bills. It seems they have more time to get their work done. Not here. And so what you find is a lot of very slick, highly paid lobbyists, particularly in the area of education. Yeah. The other thing is that Texas is unique in that they are built on the independent school system. And so school districts are supposed to be independent. So local control is a big deal here because it's mostly locally financed, and that's where we raise the taxes. They're levied at the local level, and that's where your local leadership is. In places like California or Illinois or Washington or New Jersey, what they would do is, and we get this all the time in California too, you go to your school board, they say, sorry, we didn't pass the law. You got to go to the Department of Education. You go to the Department of Education. They said it was the legislators. They'll go to the legislators. They draw you back to, you got to go back to your local school board. And all the while, the unions and the special interests have actually packed the house and all those things. You can't get anything done. Texas has become that way because of the influence of a ton of money, lobbyist money, in the education space.
Yeah. Well, and I think as conservative-minded people, local control that's what we want, right? We want local control. We want local influence. But I think what I've seen and what's been alarming to me is what happens when that local control goes awry and when things are happening that shouldn't be, and there's no accountability for it. And that's I think what has been concerning to us, and why we've gotten so involved in trying to make changes at the state level, because our local districts are not keeping themselves in check. They're not coloring inside the lines that they're supposed to be. And the legislative process, this is the first time I've ever paid attention to the legislative process. I never thought I would care at all to read a proposed bill. And I've read so many for this particular session. And as Aileen mentioned, we meet for 6 months, and there were over 9,000 proposed bills filed.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way most of those will
almost
ever get
1,000
a
on education alone.
How are you going to keep up with Leonardo DiCaprio if you follow that,
Yeah,
That's so funny. Yeah, well,
so it's literally like trying to pay attention to all these issues is like drinking from a fire hose all day long for 6 months.
Well, it's like the bills that get, put forth in Congress in DC, and it's like a stack that's this big, and they expect you to read it overnight.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
By design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they know you're not going to.
It feels that way for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But those two unique things that I mentioned are also opportunity areas. So we have an opportunity to take back local control. That's really important. That's your school board. We're going through school board elections right now. We all know what that's about. You see the power and the control and the gamesmanship and the politicking, and it's nuts because there is a lot at stake at the local control level. It's not just happening here in Prosper. It's everywhere. And when you start liaising with people from all over the state now that we have, you realize this is happening everywhere. So it personally affects us here in our district, and we see how that plays out, but it's happening everywhere. It's time to break that up. In fact, I think it is getting broken up. And I think our legislators are starting to go like, you're kidding me. Yeah. You should see the looks on their faces sometimes in these hearings. They're like, they just can't believe it's true. And then people come and they bring evidence and they share their stories. They're coming from all corners of the state.
Yeah.
And the legislators are starting to just go, Enough of this. I mean, let's sign on to that bill. Let's move this one.
Seriously,
no
good.
more of that.
You don't have to be some fancy lobbyist or have some sort of qualification to go testify on a bill in Austin. Anybody that is a resident of the state of Texas can find a bill that relates to them or their circumstance, take interest in it, follow it through the legislature, see when it's set for hearing, and drive to Austin and testify in person.
Adopt a bill.
You guys should take your podcast on the road. You should do a road trip.
We absolutely should.
We've talked about it.
Do it.
I'm like partially like want to testify about the whole thing. That they came after me on Facebook. A couple of the teachers, they were like calling me out, and I was like, wait a minute, like all I'm doing is like helping people talk about the issues as they see it. Like, and I had a couple things to say about the system. Doesn't mean you can come after me and start bashing me on Facebook because you disagree with what I have to say. Like, that's not the place of a teacher to do that.
Well, privately in their own private Facebook.
Right. Just to the whole district, all the administrators and the teachers in the district this happened to. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it wasn't to your face. It was to all the rest of the teachers.
It was just 750 people.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not in that group, so I can't defend myself, you know?
So you might, you might find really interesting. So this is a bill you need to get behind. It was just heard today in civil and criminal jurisprudence, blah, 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 whatever. So a Democrat, he's been the chair of the education committee for a very long time. His name is Harold Dutton. And the Democrat, Harold Dutton, put forward a bill. Janelle loves this bill.
I do love this bill.
In Texas, you may not know that school districts enjoy what we call sovereign immunity, and the lawyer can explain that. And his bill chips away at that and says a parent will have a right to sue the school district, which you don't really have a right to do if they come after you and defame you or whatever. But we can get behind positive bills like that really level the playing field because the balance of power is completely out of whack.
Yeah.
Completely out of whack.
It's sovereign immunity basically means you can't sue the state without their permission. And how often are they going to give you permission to sue them?
Please
right?
sue us. Yeah.
Right.
I would give everyone permission.
In February, I left my firm. I did civil litigation work for 15 years, and I left my firm to go do education work because I saw a need. I saw parents that need help in special education and also just in education related issues in general with grievances and complaints and just trying to navigate all of that. And
what happens to them, Janelle? What happens to them when they try and take on their issues?
It's heartbreaking to tell a parent who comes to you with a legitimate issue, and I have to tell them there's nothing really, you can't sue. You can't sue for that. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? This teacher just drug my child across the floor of the classroom and you're telling me I can't sue them for that? And that's the current state of the law in Texas. There's virtually nothing you can sue a school district official for.
Wow.
If a teacher drags your kid across the ground 20 feet in the class, there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing really
you can't sue.
Meaningful you can do. You can file a complaint, an educator misconduct complaint with the State Board of Education, which takes months to resolve.
Yeah.
And
can we just say the State Board of Education is overrun? Can I just tell you, I heard the statistic today.
Oh, I wonder why.
Blow your mind. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Listen to this.
Kids getting dragged across
Year to date, I should have asked whether it was school year or calendar year, and I'm sorry I didn't ask that. 7,000 educator complaints to the State Board of Educator certification.
It actually doesn't matter if it's school year or calendar year. That number is astronomical regardless.
Yeah. So you can file that, but
it's a suggestion box.
And the State Board of Education doesn't have the power to do anything for you personally. They're not going to be able to, if your child gets injured by that teacher, they're not going to be able to order payment of medical expenses or counseling for the trauma they've been through. Yeah.
Proverbial.
So this bill, it was heard today, like you mentioned.
I like that bill too. I normally don't like bills that are coming from Democrats, but
I know. Well, and I did mostly defense work, so I'm always weary of frivolous lawsuits. And so part of me is kind of like, do we really want everybody and their mother being able to sue our schools? There can be downside to that, right? You can have frivolous lawsuits,
part of
and
the problems with the medical world, right? Like
the guy who spills coffee on his lap from McDonald's because it's too hot, and then decides to sue, and then
extraordinarily hot. Actually, read that case.
And there's
but I'm just saying, it got McDonald's to put contents are extremely hot on all their coffee. You know.
There were actually documents in that case. I'm going to sound like a plaintiff's lawyer right now, which I'm not, but there were actually documents in that case where they knew it could cause 3rd-degree burns. And they said,
No, really?
we're going to keep it this hot anyway, because their customers were complaining that by the time they got to work, their coffee was cold.
I mean, that's the nature of like
Hot drinks.
Drinks, right? They
That's
get
why we
cold
have
after
these.
a little while. Yeah,
Yes.
Yetis. And solve that problem.
And they use really thin.
We love
Especially-
to have Yeti as a sponsor.
Right.
Especially handsome ones like this that are
Yes, that's
branded.
right.
Very nice,
Yeah.
gentlemen.
But
So,
there-
okay, so keep in mind, so that's 5290, House Bill 5290 by Harold Dutton.
Mhm.
Yep. Reach
Very
out to
good.
your legislators and tell
Yeah.
them, push that bill.
Yeah.
Push
Yeah.
that bill.
I think they
It's
should.
Like
the
that
one-
move that bus thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those. It's
Now,
a move
how do you?
that bus.
So for people who are ignorant to this, like, how do you just go online and you find out who the representative is for your?
Every
area?
bill gets assigned to a committee once it's filed. So I guess probably the first step would be to
Find my rep.
find the committee, and find your rep.
Findmyrep.com.
Go to Find My Rep. Just put that in a Google search, Find My Rep. And you can check it while we're on the phone, make sure I got my facts straight. But you can go to Find My Rep and you find out who represents you. And if you're in Prosper ISD, and you probably have listeners outside this area, but if you're in Prosper ISD, you have Jared Patterson or Matt Shaheen. And it's potentially likely that you have Frederick Frazier if you're on the east side of McKinney. So, yep. So those are your representatives. But you know what? You contact the committee clerk of the committee that bill went to. That one went to civil
House
and
Judiciary.
it was civil and criminal jurisprudence.
myreps.datamade.us.
So I found it on house.gov.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
House.gov.
House.gov.
house.gov/representatives/find-your-representative.
Yeah,
You can
if
put
it's-
that in the show notes so
Yeah.
that people can link directly to it from the podcast show notes. So
the
check the
Find
show
My
notes.
Rep,
You'll have it in there.
It goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
so
so
you'll
sorry.
see-
Find my representative. Is that
Oh,
what it
maybe
is?
that's
Find my
it.
representative.
Maybe that's
Sorry, probably.
It's okay.
You just got fact
got all
checked.
slangy. Got fact checked.
Well, I'm
Fact
saying
checker around here.
it's all right.
That's good.
I'll put the house.gov link in there because that's like an official.
Yeah,
zip
so it
code
could
search.
be.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Are you on the United States House of Representatives? Because
Yeah.
that would be the wrong place. You want to go to
Oh,
the Texas. Yeah,
Okay,
Texas House
I
of
saw that link
Representatives.
too. So I can go to house.texas.gov, members, find your representative.
Right.
And if it's a Senate bill that you're interested in, you would go to find your state senator, which
Should be
you're-
Drew Springer.
Yeah.
Could be Angela Paxton if you're
Okay.
on the east side of the district.
Who represents me?
We'll figure that out.
WRN.texas.gov.
Yeah.
Yep,
show
yep.
for
Put those links up there. But so that's a bill, like you're saying. You have an issue, and this is the thing that I think people it feels too daunting. And you mentioned this. You don't have to be anybody in particular. You just have to have a story and be able to tell it in less than 2 minutes. And they welcome having real people who are not paid to do this work. You can't imagine the warm welcome we are getting. And we gave Harold Dutton an award. Texas Education 911 gave him a Courage Award for filing that bill. We love it. He loves us. He's so
That's
excited.
great.
He posted it in his office.
That's awesome.
And he said, oh my gosh, you got all these grassroots parents. They would love for more parents to show up and represent for
Well-
their issues. They really would.
Because you know who is there? The ACLU is there. Raise Your Hand Texas is
Yeah.
there, which Aileen can tell you a little bit about who that group is.
I haven't heard of Raise Your Hand
the
Texas.
counselors
but I've heard of the
associations
ACLU.
are there. People who have a monetary interest in what happens in our schools. So hearing from regular people,
Yes.
with personal stories is refreshing for
That's
the
oftentimes
legislators.
the problem is that you're fighting money.
Yeah.
And it's just like DC, you're fighting against money. And so how do you fight against these people who have all this money and all these lobbyists that have all this cash, and they just throw it at the problem to try to ensure that whatever their agenda is gets through,
Right.
Well, you show up with heart,
Yeah.
right? And you put your mind to work on a solution. And when you start coming forward with solutions, they go, novel idea. I think you're right. And then you bring evidence, mountains of it from all over the state. And you prove this isn't just a North Texas issue. This isn't just a border issue. There's a legislator who has a district. She's one of those new Hispanic Republican representatives that they'd never had a Republican in that area for like forever. And she's a new Republican representative. And we promote her bills because she had a bill. We all know what happened here in Prosper last year, on our school bus. And she had administrators in a school running a trafficking ring out of a school.
No.
Yeah. And there's another representative who literally, because okay, I'm going to blow your mind here. Sorry, I'm like switching up a bunch of subjects.
That's okay.
But do you know?
People need to hear this.
Do you know if you commit a sex offense against a student in a school, okay? You're the gym coach, you're, a hot little number, and you have sex with a 15-year-old boy at school, okay? You have committed a crime, right?
Right.
In the TEA world, it's called an inappropriate relationship with a minor, sexual relationship with a minor.
Do y'all know what the TEA is?
Texas Education Association.
Yes.
Agency. It's our state Department of Education, okay? And they do look into misconduct of educators. This has become
supposed to.
a weird passion of mine lately because we have not seen justice or transparency in this district, but we are not alone. This is systemic across the entire state. And if you talk to law enforcement, they are starting to get freaked out by the number of misconduct reports in schools, the number of child-on-child sexual encounters in schools or by school-age kids. It's nuts. Everybody in the legislature is pretty clear at this point. Okay, the sexualization of our culture has gone way too far, and they want to solve the problem. But back to the issue at hand, if you're the educator who commits that offense in school with a student, it's called an inappropriate sexual relationship with a minor.
Right.
Do you know, even if they have evidence of all of that and you admit it and everything else, actually you can get away with not admitting it. And you can enjoy a separate tier of justice because.
But isn't that a crime?
Wait, listen. Wait till you hear how crazy it is.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I jumped the gun on that one.
No, this is really nuts. And this is why I hope this drives people to Austin. I hope this drives you to your email boxes. I hope this drives your listeners to their phones. Because everywhere we go with these flyers, people see what we have and they go, "You're kidding me. How is that possible?" If you did this somewhere else, like with a niece or a nephew, or, you would be committed of a sex crime and you would be put on the state's sex offender registry.
Yeah.
Not necessarily if you're a teacher and you do that with a student in school, because you know what? Yeah. You could just surrender your teaching certificate, not admit any guilt. We've seen all the evidence. And you could just say, this would be too much of a hardship to go through this. I don't even know who that kid is. You can take my educator certification. I'm walking. Bye-bye. I have evidence files, one after another, where these people just go reinvent themselves. They just go pick up another job somewhere else. Nobody knows they're a sex offender because they were never officially convicted. School districts sweep it right under the rug.
Yeah, I watched the Netflix documentary about something in Little Elm. There's something like that happened, and the teacher, I think, did that, something along those lines.
Louisville. He was a coach. Yeah, he's now he's a financial advisor. He's a financial planner in Southlake.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Because that's a crime, right? I mean, it's a crime.
Sure is. So if you're a pedophile
for that, and then they get killed in jail.
So
or suicide.
And this is where.
Well, I'm just telling you. You know what? There are a lot of crimes that are not being committed, and if you are working in the education system and you're committing those crimes, whether it's violence against a child, a drug offense with or in the presence of a child, or a sex offense, there's a separate tier of justice. I mean, some people get convicted and some people go to jail and some people get their certificates revoked. But I will tell you, 10% of the people, this will blow your mind too, 10% of the people who commit the offenses who should be on the state's do not hire registry, only 10% of them are.
That's unbelievable. I'm a big fan of Louis Uredell's position on this. He's a big Instagram guy, and he wants to bring back wood chippers.
For people who commit sex crimes with kids.
Capital punishment with a wood chipper.
So there is the Keep This Between Us series about these relationships.
Keep
And that is in Little Elm.
Yeah.
So there's another instance in Little Elm that the documentary has been put together for.
Oh, the documentary. Sorry, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
it's a docu-series is what they call it here on the Daily Mail. I don't know if that's just British people talking or what, but
yeah, we watched it. It was like mind-blowing stuff that goes on. And you're like, wait a minute, like how does this actually go down? And like nothing, doesn't seem like anything happens.
Okay. Do you want to know why? You want to know why?
Yeah, I want to know why.
Because school districts have their own police departments.
Yep.
And those police departments answer to the superintendent. So they're like their own,
Police force.
It's like the IRS.
You might as well have your own country.
It's the IRS.
You kind of make your own rules. You have your own country. They're not accountable to anybody else. If the super decides it's going under the rug.
So the school
goes under
board,
the
but the superintendent is beholden to and reports to the school board.
Bingo.
And the school board doesn't have
Is accountable to the voters.
They're accountable to we the people.
Yes.
Right? And the voters.
Yes.
Well,
But how does that work when the people are loud enough to say like, hey, this is a problem? And like, where is the school boards in all this? Are they cool with all this? Because it seems to me like they're cool with all this stuff.
Well, I think
It just seems like they're cool with it, which...
the Texas
Hey,
Association
school board,
of
you guys
School
cool with
Boards,
this? Because that's kind of weird.
bingo.
TASB doesn't
Right.
believe that it's the voters. It's the
Right.
district that they're serving, the board. So it's essentially just a big loophole. Right?
Loophole.
It's
Sure.
not
Yeah.
accountability. There's not a top to bottom accountability. There's no structure. It's just a big loop.
See how this works, people?
School board members go to training with TASB, and TASB trains them to think and act as a team of 8, 7 school board members and the superintendent. And you're there to support the district. And I think what you're referring to, I assume, is the comments that were made recently by an individual running from Frisco ISD who actually read a statement from TASB that said, you're essentially beholden to the district itself and not any group of voters.
Right. They published,
Right.
Texas Association of School Boards actually published, and we talked about this in another one of our podcasts, but on TASB School Law eSource, under powers and duties of the school board, they outline essentially
Right.
what they believe essentially is the duties of a school board.
Yeah. So, I mean, theoretically, that's how it's supposed to work, right? The superintendent is supposed to be accountable to the board. The board is accountable to the voters. That's obviously not how it's working in our school districts across Texas.
Time to take that back.
Yeah.
Everybody around Texas, take
And
it all
that's
back.
why
Get your
there's
last
so
vote.
much of a power struggle.
And so here's the other thing too. It's like this big...
Make education great again.
Yeah. Mega. I love it. Mind blown.
Coin it.
Now my mind is blown.
Copyright that
If it
now.
wasn't blown before, it's blown now.
What is it? We're making it a thing. What are we making it a thing?
Mega. Make education
I know. Remember, we're
great
making
again.
we're making it a thing.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah, we're
Right.
making it a thing. Mega. We're
Let's do it.
hashtag
Yeah.
hashtag mega
Hashtag
Texas.
mega.
Mega Texas.
Mega Texas.
Texas, oh,
Make
it's so
education
racist.
great again.
Trucker hats.
I'm all for it. You know what? That's what I say right here. I said make kids safe at school again because
We should get some new
they are
T-shirts
not
made
safe
that
from
say
some of the predator
"Make education great
Education
again."
great again.
It's true.
Yeah.
Dude's talking freedom. Make education great again.
You just it's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be a thing.
It blows my mind that it doesn't work. It's broken. I mean, this was my argument is that the system is broken. It's been broken, and people are just now realizing that it's broken, and they're trying to figure out how they can help fix the break. And it's
Let's
not
go.
just putting your finger in a hole in the dam because there's a ton of holes, right? And you got to,
Bring all your friends.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it starts locally. And that's kind of what we figured out really early on is that big change starts locally. We've said that over and over. And the two of you continue to preach the same message. But it's true. It's where it starts. It's all about community. It's all about getting to know your neighbor and talking about it a little bit more and then advancing that conversation higher and higher and higher.
I think what's been really frustrating, disheartening, concerning, all of those things for me as a parent of 3 kids in Prosper ISD is that there is this huge resistance to talking publicly about our shortcomings. Yes, there are many good things here. Our kids win amazing awards and competitions and we have, all sorts of good things in that regard, but there are problems. And I cannot wrap my brain around this notion that if you bring up the problems and you're trying to find a solution that somehow you're anti-teacher or you hate public schools. Yeah. I don't understand.
You must
that.
hate all the teachers and you must hate all the administrators if you think that there's an issue. And it's like, wait, what? I never said that.
I got to tell you, I think educators, because we're seeing evidence of it all over. I think educators, I think some administrators, parents, the lawmakers, they're done with it. They're done with the over politicking. They're done with the too far push with the culture stuff. They're done. It's like, this is the year to take back the schools. I'm telling you, when you have Democrats putting that bill forward, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
And you know what? You didn't come from New Jersey thinking you were on the same team with the Democrats, but here in Texas, those folks are seeing how this system is failing Black and brown kids so badly. And they've had it. They've had it. I mean, Harold Dutton comes from Houston ISD, and the state just took over his whole district. And they just took over Austin. The most woke places are getting taken over by the state. And some of these legislators are starting to go, that's what they're doing? You have evidence of that? That's what it looks like? And so they didn't really do that. And they did. And look, it's systemic. It's totally systemic. This is not going to be solved overnight.
No. And it's a century in the works too. I mean, this is kind of ongoing. This was my whole point of my John Dewey post on Facebook. If y'all haven't seen it, you should go check it out.
It's the one that caught the ire of so many
It
folks.
did, and it's like, look, I'm not saying teachers are bad. I'm just saying Dewey was a bad guy, and he's viewed as the godfather of education, and the patron saint of education in the United States. And he was a bad dude. He had nefarious intent. And
same with Mark Cusa and same with Paolo Freire, which they all read about in teacher college. And you know what? If you think about this for a minute, if you can wind back to like when you're 19 and you're 20 and you're learning your career and you're passionate about it. And so it's kind of the schools, the educators, and whoever's planned this whole thing over decades and decades, they were on the take because they took advantage of young people's great passion to go out and do something great, to serve kids, to be educators, and they had a lofty ideal. I don't think most educators came into the profession that they're in thinking, I can't wait to go indoctrinate kids. That's not it. It is a slow drip where you are constantly getting the same message, and soon you're in the frog water. It's comfortable. And you're with all the people in the frog water, and they're comfortable and they're passionate. And so it's in the frog water. It's very systemic. Yeah. It's not going to happen overnight, but I will break the ice on one big issue, and that is school choice doesn't solve these problems. Right. And so whether you're for it or you're against it, it's not a panacea. Yeah. It's not going to solve all the problems. And so, a lot of times people like us, we're like, oh, those parents are well paid. I don't make any money doing this, do you? My husband knows I don't make any money doing this. But anyways, they go, oh, they're well paid and they're well coordinated, and they just want to stop, they want to interrupt the funding for public schools, and they want to take down public education. I don't want to take down public education. I want to take down some serious problems with public education, but school choice doesn't solve this. So for the record, I'm not taking a position on school choice. That's not what this is about. Yeah. Just to be clear, because, of course, they just want to dismantle public education. No, people need public education.
Yeah, we don't need 1,000 ghost cities of failed institutions around here. Right. Let's take care of these big, beautiful buildings, and let's put the right people in there and the right ideas.
And teachers want freedom from this too.
It starts at the school board. It starts at the school board, because the school board gets to make the decisions on who gets put in there, and then that is a trickle down effect. But it's legislation is a big deal, because you're right, it's systemic. That's been my argument, and it goes back to them, like the frog water. I love that, and they're in this box. They're all in this box together, but they can't
ideals.
Get out of the box.
They're good ideals.
And one of the things that we've run into and seen in school districts across the state is when you say, kids are being surveyed without parental consent. Or they're being given mental health checks without parental consent. And a teacher will go, well, I don't do that in my classroom. Well, okay, you may not, but you're not in every classroom. And when I'm telling you my child was, her child was, hundreds of thousands of, kids across the state, they are being. So the fact that you're not doing it doesn't mean it's not happening. And one of the bills that was heard yesterday, Aileen went down to Austin for a very long day of public education committee hearing testimony. They went until 2 a.m.
Whoa.
I didn't stay that late.
I was going to say, that's dedication.
Right.
It's biennial that they make up for it.
For sure. But she does it in 3.5. She's crazy.
I didn't even drive yesterday.
You say you got a private jet or what?
No, shit.
We need to find some people who do have one, though.
Yeah,
we could do a lot more. So if you're the private jet people out there, we could use some transportation sponsorship.
But one of the bills that was up yesterday was, is it HB or SB?
No, HB 1149.
And it requires
Valerie Swanson
parental consent for psychological, psychiatric, any sort of mental health treatment, exams, et cetera. And you would think, well, isn't that already the case? Yeah. Aren't they supposed to be doing that anyway?
Well, there is a federal law that says they should be doing that, but that's not how we're operating.
Right.
And
we're getting around it by calling things daily check-ins or needs assessments so we can plan for our counseling services for the year. What else are they calling it? Mental health self-checks,
check-in.
Yes.
All those things. But the law has a really broad definition. There's another one. There's another action point, HB 1149. Go after that one. We want that one. Because parents should have a right to agree or provide their written parental consent to anything that they're going to ask your children about. A lot of times these surveys are asking about risk behavior. My son got a survey that literally, it's kind of weird. It's like, it says Teen Wellness Compass Self-Assessment, your results. And the domains of the survey are heart, mind, soul, and strength. I don't really think that's the purview of the school district, frankly. And, they were asking things like, do you feel like you get to the doctor if you need to? And I'm thinking, what is the point of this? Now, or do you feel good about your sexual identity and how you take care of yourself? You keep yourself healthy in that area? And I'm like, what? Why is this happening in Spanish class, by the way, a totally English survey in Spanish?
So my daughter, 6th grader, came home. We were here the other day and we were recording an episode with Susan Kershaw, who's running for Frisco ISD.
Great lady.
Yep, she's awesome. And we had a great conversation with her. And I told my daughter, she's like, oh, you're doing a recording tonight? I was like, yeah. She's like, who are you recording with? I said, this woman named Susan. She's like, it's a girl? And I said, yeah, it's a girl. And she's like, well, Dad, I don't want to assume gender. And she was dead serious. And I said, but her name is Susan. She's like, I still don't want to assume gender. I'm like, who's telling you can't assume gender? And she's like, I just don't want to. I don't want to get in trouble for assuming gender. And I'm like, you are not learning this at home. You are not learning this on television. You are learning this somewhere else. And it's either with friends or in school. More than likely it's in school because that's where she spends most of her time when she's not home. I was like laughing. I couldn't believe she said it. I was like, well, yes, it's a female. Her name is Susan. Well, you sure?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I'm sure.
Johnny Cash once sang about a boy named Sue.
Yeah. That's exactly what I brought. That's what he brought up the other night.
Had to say it. It was wide open. Well, I'll tell you what. So what's really interesting about that, social media plays a big part in all of that, right? But ultimately, like, these are the things. Like, our kids are getting overly sexualized and they're being over enculturated in just Marxist crap.
Yeah.
And all of this is just meant to disrupt our children's and our culture, disrupt the culture, disrupt the nuclear family. Okay. And again, I don't think teachers set out to do that. No. It's just when I asked the teacher who gave this particular assessment, like, how does that happen? Like, how does this assignment land up like an 8-page, self-assessment about wellness in Spanish, like, but all in English. But anyway, how did it get here? And she explained to me, it just happens that curriculum instruction gives you a theme that you have to carry out. And so the grade level people get together and then those teachers decide what's going to show up in the classroom. And so a teacher or a parent might be frustrated, like, what is this doing here? I mean, I honestly, I have an active grievance on this right now, but the reason why I brought it up is because on principle, there is a federal law that prohibits doing this without my express written parental consent. It's a major principle issue. So, and there's a law being violated. The district doesn't acknowledge that they're breaking a law. That's okay. They can say that. They have to say that. But there is a law. And the teacher in an email did admit that the assignment broke the law with my son in an email. It's fine. I'm not here to try and take down the district. I just want them to pass a board policy and say, you're going to get consent. So they're agreeing to do that. They don't want to agree to do the other things right now. But what's happening is they're just getting over-enculturated at this point, right? And where do we stop? Parents are frustrated. They don't know. Like, they come to you too. They have an issue and they're like, what do I do about this?
Yeah.
They see what a school district can do to your reputation or to anybody else's reputation. And they just say, I don't want to say anything. We need to empower parents to just go ahead, step up, one, vote, ask those candidates how they feel about these things. It matters. Do parents have a right or not? Does our vote count or our voice count or not? Our vote doesn't count around here either. We get appointments instead of votes. There's another law that we have that's ready to get passed. I mean, look, every time a school district misbehaves for the last 18 months, I thought about a law that could maybe fix that problem. But I'm not alone. I mean, we have dozens and dozens of parents in this group that are doing that.
Yeah.
And so all over the state, when they make a DAP placement for a kid who, whatever, and there's no evidence and blah, 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 blah. Like there are parents down in San Antonio and East Texas that have put their kids together in Carrollton and put their heads together and said like, you know what we could do? We could just change the law and they would have to do this. And they would look, all of those things are out there. So I hope this empowers people to just start thinking creatively and just start speaking up. Send an email into your legislator and say, I've had a problem with this, but I'm thinking we might be able to solve it with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get the conversation going. We have so many bright people in this community. Many.
Oh, yeah. All over the world.
These are
There's
our problems to
so many bright
solve.
people.
It's our tax dollars, our problems to solve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you talk about how these teachers are in frog water or they have Stockholm syndrome or whatever you want to call it, right? Like it's that. And then they have these pensions, right? And they get, I'm only 10 years away from retiring to get my pension, in order to complete that. So I don't know. I feel like maybe the pension plan itself may be somewhat of a chain for these teachers. And anybody with a pension, really, if you get fed up with your position, but you stick it out because you only got 10 more years in order to reach, get fully vested or whatever, And by the way, they're a huge liability because they over promise and they underperform. And, maybe they should just do away with these pensions so that these teachers have, more of a,
incentive.
Yeah, more incentivized to say something.
Or they're less
and they're
likely
able to walk away with a bigger chunk of what they've already put in.
Yeah.
Which would be in the terms of, another type of retirement plan, essentially.
Yeah. Or they could just do whatever they want with the money.
Right.
And,
they wouldn't get the tax
invest it however they want.
Yeah, they could just get paid better.
Yeah. There's a lot of teachers right now just walking out and they're doing it with or without their pension. So that tells us something. I mean, we have a major educator shortage right now.
Yeah. Susan was saying in Frisco, they went from 860 leave. And then after they had 700 leave the year prior, and then another 860.
18% attrition rate or something.
Yeah, it was insane. Ridiculous. The numbers she was sharing, we were like, whoa, that's crazy.
Some of the teachers in Prosper that have made the most impact on my children no longer teach at all. And they have all left for similar reasons. And that was they were micromanaged or they didn't feel supported by their administrators. I think
were they told how to vote?
The administrators are getting paid extremely well.
Anywhere from 175 to 524. I saw the continuum of pay for superintendents in Texas.
Yeah.
Wait, say that again.
175 to 525, and that doesn't include bonuses. That's just
making 525.
I think it was this Austin area, I believe. I'm not positive, but I can Google it up while you finish your comment.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have some very high paid superintendents in this region.
Yeah.
Very, very high paid.
Yeah. I'd like to see them do a better job.
Have you looked at the performance data? That's a whole nother bag of worms.
No, I have not looked at performance data. I mean, so is that something people can is it public? Is it performance data is public? Mm-hmm. And I have to imagine it looks great.
Well, go ahead.
It probably looks great, right? The books are cooked, aren't they?
Well, you have to realize who our TA commissioner is, Mike Morath, right? He's not an educator. Morath is a big data guy. It's not surprising. And the standard for, when you have the STAR test, if that's what the data we're talking about, you have approaches grade level, meets grade level, and master's grade level. And common sense used to tell me that if your child is scoring master's grade level on the STAR, they're getting 90% or higher. I mean, that seems like a reasonable assumption to me, but in reality, it's a sliding scale that's closer to what?
Between 78% and 89%, somewhere between there. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and meets grade level, that can go all the way down into the 60s. It varies though
And then
by
they get
grade.
to retake their test because they scored below a 70.
Not on the star. You know why? Because there's money attached to you failing the star, and you get extra money for tutoring and catch
there's
up
a
work.
company that makes $3.8 billion pounds.
Oh,
In
pounds.
pounds.
They're not even American.
No, they're not American. In revenues per year, named Pearson. And they, in addition with Texas Education Agency and one other group, the group of educators, I think, that come up with the STAR test. And you don't have to take the STAR test. Your parents can opt out of it. And apparently the student can opt out of it even without the parents' consent. So, I mean, this is just a giant money-making scheme that Pearson has going on. I mean, they even they owned Penguin Publishing, who was one of the top 6 publishers in the world.
Yeah.
And then they merged with another publisher and it became the top 5, essentially. And then they owned Financial Times and they sold that off because, these tests for schools around the nation make plenty of money. So they're like, this is an underperforming asset. Let's just kind of centralize our focus on
The schools.
Fleecing the school districts and these people, the taxpayers, out of their money.
Yeah. Well,
Sounds like the bankers.
But the top paid superintendent is Cypress in Harris County, $512,000.
oh, I thought it was Cy-Fair. I thought you were saying Cy-Fair, Cypress,
Yeah.
Cypress ISD.
It's a Cypress Fairbanks, I believe.
Oh, that's his name?
No, that's Cy-Fair.
No, that's
Cy-Fair,
okay,
Cypress
there you go.
Fairbanks.
It is. Yeah, Cy-Fair. Yeah. I don't know the lingo,
Cy-Fair.
but yeah, that's the top paid one.
Yeah, that's outside of
it's never
Houston,
made
is it?
sense to me that when I ask my child's teachers every year towards the end of the year, do you need any school supplies? Have you run out of anything? And they ask me for literally this year paper, pencils, and glue sticks. But we have administrators making buku money, and I've got teachers asking me for glue sticks for their classrooms.
Sad.
That makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense.
No, I do think that educators see the issue of teacher pay is really sticky because once it's set, and it's really hard for a local school district to make a direct impact. Like school board members, it's hard for a school board member to say, I'm going to raise teacher salaries because, education and Texas funding for education is wackadoodle wild. You don't want to start that conversation, but it's crazy.
We'll have you back to talk specifically about that one.
Oh, no. I mean, do you know, okay, but let me say, we have an incredible CFO in our district.
Yeah.
He's really smart and he's really knowledgeable. Yes, I only had a few conversations with him. I actually asked him if I could get a tutorial, but I don't know, I might have ticked off the district and they probably don't want him talking to me. But anyways.
What could you have possibly done to do that?
I'm just being a parent. Anyway.
Okay. You don't.
That'll do it, though.
You want to be the
it.
parent and not co-parent with your school district?
Anyways, yes, our CFO he's really bright. So, I mean, he might, I wonder if he'd come on your podcast because honestly, it's a really complicated subject.
Does he work for Dr. Ferguson?
Well, he does, but I think
she's not going to let him on this podcast.
come on.
I guarantee it.
She's like,
Why can't they play fair? He's a really bright guy.
Board members come on, except Garrett.
No, he's a really bright guy, and I think he has a lot to offer in that conversation. I mean, it's really complicated.
Yeah.
You extend the invitation anyways. Just ask because I don't know. He seems to be a fair dealing person, and he seems to be a really straight up guy. I've always had really positive interaction with him, even though it's very limited, but super knowledgeable.
Okay.
And
we'll hit him up.
yes. But what I was going to say is something about finance. What were we talking about?
Teacher pay.
Oh, teacher pay. Okay.
Right.
So I do think teachers need to make more money. They really do. The job they're doing today is really difficult. And I will tell you, something happened today in the legislature. There was a word said, and I took issue with it because I should have. But you know what? It is true also. It's true. Back to your original point about parents abdicating, like so badly today that teachers are having to take on the brunt of all the unparenting. And to not acknowledge that, every teacher out there right now is going, finally some truth out of that podcast.
Yeah, right?
because
I'm sure afraid to blame the parents.
Yeah.
But it is the
No,
parents'
It's the
fault.
it
parents.
is. Let's tell it like it is.
100% the parent.
Yes.
All the behavioral issues that a kid goes to school with is a issue that stems from the home. It is not a school. It's not up to the school to correct child's behaviors. It's up to the parents. And I get it. Every parent has a different situation, but I will say in affluent parts of, Texas, you have a lot of parents that are wealthy, that both parents are working, which is also part of the system that's been created since the days of the Rockefellers, funding the National Education Association, wanting to disarm the nuclear family and get women into the workforce, number one, so that they could collect more money for the IRS with their W-2s.
Is that what the nuclear treaty is? Sorry.
and number two is so that they could force abdication of child rearing to the schools. Right. And then they could institute this indoctrination of the youth without the teachers even realizing that's what's happening. Right. And so it's not like, I'm not pointing the finger at teachers. I'm pointing a finger at the system. The system's broken. But the parents that aren't paying attention to the behaviors of their kids, like if my kid does something wrong, they get punished for it. I don't give a shit if it's at school or at home or at a neighbor's house or down the block. They're getting punished, whether they get grounded, they lose privileges,
do you beat them?
whatever.
Do you ever beat them?
No.
He can't say that on camera.
Oh, sorry.
I don't ever beat my kids.
I don't either. I'm kidding.
But
it's not funny.
they will lose privileges. I mean, something will happen to them that they do not like. It creates a spark in them that they will not do that again. Right.
And if you have a loving relationship with your kid, they want to please you. Kids generally want to please their parents. They want your love and respect.
That's the thing. And these parents, they go to work and they're, God bless them. They're there to try to make money to provide for their family and all these things, but they're forgetting about the child rearing aspect of being a parent. And they're just leaving it up to the schools and be like, the school's going to educate my kid. The school's going to make sure that they're well behaved. The schools. And then they let them come home, bury themselves in their room with a freaking iPhone or an iPad. And they don't talk to them till dinner, and they don't have any conversations with them. And they don't ask them how their day was. And they don't ask them how things are going at school with their friends and this and that. How are your teachers? All that. Like, we have conversations with our kids, all three of them. Some of them talk less than others, but we have the conversations and we create that dialogue. Parents who aren't doing that are doing their kids a disservice, and they're doing the teachers a disservice, and they're giving the teachers and the school district a bad name.
That's right.
And it's not the teacher's fault. And yet when I get on a podcast and I start like talking about the system being broken, teachers are like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an idiot. And blah, blah, blah. A couple teachers, they'll publicly try to shame me, which keep coming because I don't care. I'll keep talking.
Forgive them, Lord. For they know not what they. I'm just kidding. Okay, but no, you're absolutely right. It's like family creates culture. We have to create better culture in our families. I mean, it's really imperative. So yes, teachers should be paid more, but mostly because right now they are dealing with the brunt of a very, very broken culture.
Yeah.
A very broken family culture.
So I'm gonna be contrarian for a second. I feel like that's allowed in this space. It's a safe space for me to be contrarian.
We talk freedom here, so you can say whatever the hell you want.
Okay, so I completely agree with everything you just said. Completely agree. Parents have abdicated their role to rear their child and shape behavior. Completely agree. But when schools are not communicating with the parent about things that are happening at school, and parents aren't aware of what's happening to be able to discipline their child, that contributes to the problem. The survey that my child was given at the beginning of the year asked a bunch of questions about how he felt about himself, how he felt about school. Did he feel safe at school? Did he feel safe at home? I didn't know his answers for that for 3 months. I was never told until I happened to ask the counselor one day. So when it has that communication has to be two ways. So that's number one, I would say. Number two, we could do a whole other podcast on special education issues, but I'm going to put my special education lawyer hat on for a second and just say that, yes, when there are bad behaviors happening in the classroom or a child is struggling, the parents need to step up and parent their child. But school districts also have a federal obligation called Child Find to identify, diagnose, evaluate every child in their school district from the age of 3 to 21 that may have a special need that could be causing those behaviors, whether it's autism, dyslexia, ADHD, speech impairment, et cetera.
Sure.
So those caveats aside,
Well, yeah,
it is the parents who have completely failed us in our culture.
I'm not talking about those
I think people
issues,
understand
right?
that.
I'm
Yeah,
not
that's an important point.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I'm glad you said that because I don't want people to think that I believe that all kids who have behavioral issues as a result of the parents. I'm talking about behavioral issues that stem from a lack of attention from the parents.
Absolutely.
Not because they have a special need,
Right.
or they have ADHD, or they have another.
But the special need piece, that's interesting that you bring that up because there's a universe of special needs that needs to be addressed and identified. But then once they've, satisfied that universe and completed that, it's just kind of this machine that has to continue and go outside the realm and jurisdiction really of where what they should be identifying. And that's I think that's probably where we're at this point. Things have gotten so good that they're kind of getting worse, So I don't know. That's what I would say.
It's a sticky situation, especially because, and I guess I would ask you, do you feel like it's more exacerbated because there's just a lot of behavior problems? Are we all like looking at every child as a child find? Yes, that's really what they're supposed to do. Yeah. But the universe of bad behavior is probably so broad at this point.
Sure.
All those people are like, we can't possibly take them all. I mean,
if I'm a hammer, everything's a nail, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a certain
I think we do have that problem.
threshold that needs to be met, right? That would legally trigger that. But
I also know parents who are fishing for a designation for their children so they can get more time and they can get all kinds of things. So I think people need to be honest.
Yeah.
Yep.
Honest with themselves, honest out in public. Truth matters.
It does.
It does.
Well, yeah, you get a huge advantage if you're dyslexic or something, like let's make my kid dyslexic. I want that advantage,
But they do have to, you have to test for that. And there is, so there's an outside objective measure of what dyslexia is. You can't just say, nope, I'm dyslexic. They need a test for that in diagnostics. That's important.
Right. And it's not just dyslexia. It's any special need could be, somebody could play a little bit into it. I thought that's what you were insinuating.
Oh, no. I mean, like it's very easy. I've been told it's very, very easy to get an ADHD, diagnosis. That one's a little bit more soft around the edges. And
well, it's because then they can prescribe SSRIs and other petroleum-based drugs so that
I think
the oil companies and the pharmaceutical companies can make a boatload of money. But
pharmacists trying to make money?
That's a whole nother podcast.
That doesn't have anything to do. That doesn't have anything to do with that social emotional learning and the mental health stuff either. I guess probably not.
We talk about the universe of bad behaviors in school. I mean, in my view, we're creating a lot of that. We're creating it by sticking these kids on Chromebooks for a good chunk of the day.
Don't get me started.
Not getting them outside, not challenging them, not incentivizing them to study for a test and do well, giving them retakes, giving them open no tests, all those kinds of things. So it's a multifaceted problem.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, one of my oldest is in 7th grade, and one of his favorite classes is outdoor education.
Yeah.
He loves it. And he's pissed that he can't take it again because once you take it as an elective, like that's it, you're done. You can't there's no outdoor education 2 or 201 or whatever. It's just you take outdoor education and then that's it, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You got to fail it.
If I was a school board member, which I'll probably never be.
Official advice.
No.
Fail it. No, I think if I was a school board member, I would make a local board policy to require every kid to be outside. Texas has weather issues, but to the degree that you can, a lot more often. And even when kids get in high school, don't take away that mandatory PE. Oh my gosh, it's so good for them.
Well, Jordan Peterson
Especially
says that boys, there you go, boys should exercise and exert themselves to the point of exhaustion every single day.
Every day.
Yes.
Every day. And people and kids.
My son does that. He's getting huge.
So does mine. My little one is constantly running around.
I still crave it. I love it.
Our boys are always outside, just like beating the crap out of themselves, like all day. Like my son was diving in the street the other day. He had cuts and bruises all over him. He's like, I can't throw a football.
Have you taken them to Sticks Ice House in McKinney? Have you been there?
No.
Y'all should go. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a restaurant with a giant back patio, and then behind the back patio is basically a huge backyard with
really?
wiffle ball field, soccer goals, a tree house, tree swings.
Yeah, he would love that.
Disc golf.
sticks.
And
right?
sometimes they have live
Nothing out
music,
there.
so you can enjoy the live music and they can kind of play around.
Is it kind of like the yard in
little bit,
McKinney?
but
Like they've got like
a little
coal
bigger, a
and-
little
A
cooler.
lot bigger.
A lot bigger,
and
yeah.
full
Oh,
Is
so
it
they
restaurant.
got a-
like 20-acre thing?
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Off
full
of
restaurant.
Eldorado.
Isn't
and
there
McKinney.
another one somewhere
I
else?
don't know. I only know the one off of Eldorado and
Like,
McKinney.
We should go take the families
Austin,
out
yeah,
there and
definitely.
check that out
Yeah.
sometime. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, and they
Aileen
come
can bring
home
her
and they're
6 kids.
dirty. I mean, that's how little boys
Love it
should
when
be,
they're
you know,
dirty.
covered in dirt.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
take a shower. I don't want to take a shower.
Just breathing
You
dirt.
stink.
I
You're
took one
dirty.
yesterday.
For your immune
I
system.
know.
It's for your mind too. It's good for your.
Yeah.
You
it's
smell
good for
like
your brain.
metal because you're sweating and
That's funny.
yeah.
No, but to the point of, you know, contributing to the behavior issues, I think we need to get kids outside more often, and we need to get them off devices. I mean, young children, we made a pivot before COVID. This was the experiment of bringing in the one-to-one technology. I think should be over because
agree with
we
that.
over rely on technology. Everybody's seeing it in their children. I mean, my child, you know, my youngest, she doesn't get technology during the day because she's no longer in a Prosper ISD school. But you know what? That's the first thing she wants when she gets home. And it's a battle with every parent. Every
Yeah.
kid wants a cell phone. Every kid wants to be on the iPad. We need to be better at monitoring those, giving those limits. And it's hard when they're expected to be on those devices all day long
For school, yeah.
as a part of school, right? Because they think like, well, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well,
The
and then they
adults
see
do.
us because like for work, I mean, I'm on a laptop all day. I've got phone, laptop, and it's, you know, that's how I work, you know, that's my job is I'm on the computer all day and I'm on my phone and I try to
hypnotic.
stay away. Yeah. And it is. And then, you know, because of the podcast, when I'm not working my full-time job, I'm looking up information and I'm on my phone and it's like, and they see that, you know, and I try to not, you know, I coach football, I coach basketball. So I do other things that, you know, I left my phone home today and I went and coached football practice. So, so they do see me without it. And, you know, we do phones down at the dinner table, all those things. But my kids, same way. They want, like, they come home from school. The ones in middle school, they come home, they both have phones, and those phones are for communication purposes only, but they use them for communication with their friends. And they come home and they start texting with their friends and FaceTime with their friends and joking around with their friends. Now they're locked down. They can't get on like online and, you know, they can only get they have to request access to an app if they want to download an app. Like my son wants to trade baseball cards, so he's got an app that allows him to buy, sell, trade baseball cards. But that's the extent of what he can use his phone for, you know. But he just goes up there and he's like, that's what he likes to do. And I'm like, why don't you go outside and play basketball? Like, you know, your brother is
Why
out
do
there
why
all
do you
day
give him a
long.
choice?
Yeah, well, that's
Why
the
do you give him
thing.
a choice? I don't give him a choice. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, well, so that's
Play
the
with the
thing.
ants in the
But it's like-
backyard.
but once they get to a certain age, right, and then they're like, their interest level in certain things just gets drawn in different directions, and I do want to encourage him to explore different things, and he really does enjoy the basketball, you know, football trading card thing, and he's like really great with math. He's a statistical analysis type of kid, and so he's like, to me, I look at that as like an investment strategy. He's learning investment strategy, which could be a lucrative field for him
Why
when
don't
he
you
gets
have him
older.
take the actuarial exams?
He's not
Could be
ready
an
for that
actuary.
yet, but,
You can always start studying for the
but
first
he's
one.
like, maybe he's like, maybe when I grow up, I want to be a, you know, statistician for a football team. You know, he was like, I would love to do a job like that. And so it's like, well, you know, I don't want to prevent him from learning that space and learning statistics and understanding the value of, you know, football cards and baseball cards.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
it's what he likes to do. And he does it with his friends, and you know, he has a friend that they go in on boxes together, and they're like, hey, we'll each spend $20 and we'll get this box and we'll split the cards and, you know, we'll figure out what we can sell and what we can keep. And,
That's
That's
good.
awesome.
you know, but
Entrepreneurism.
yeah, that's exactly kind of what I'm trying to nurture. But like it's almost to a fault though, because that's what all he wants to do. He comes home from school and then he's on his phone, and I'm like, you got to get off your phone, go do some different things. Like,
Yep.
and he does. You know, he helps coach football with my little one and stuff like that. But
all the more reason to train them out of that during the
battle.
school day.
Yeah.
It really is. It's all the more reason to train
Well,
them out
that's
of
kind
that.
of what my point is. It's like all day, like I'm on this all day, and then I come home, or I don't come home because I work from home, but I come out of my office and
Long commute.
and then I, how was your day at school? Start the dialogue, have the conversation with the kids, go coach practice, come home, do the dinner thing, and, have some family time. And
technology used to be an elective, and maybe it just needs to be an elective again, so when you come home, you can play on your phone and it's not like a continuation.
Yeah.
And that's basically what you're saying, right, Aileen, is like,
Yeah.
they're on their Chromebooks all day long.
That's right. Yeah.
And they don't need to continue to be on their.
No.
Well, and the
Blue light.
other part of the Chromebooks that gives me tremendous heartburn is the amount of data that's being collected from those Chromebooks.
Yeah.
From our kids.
Yeah, they do have keystroke
Google Classroom
trackers. They know
I'm
when
a
where you're supposed to be and when
Yeah.
you're not, and when you go off, and they know immediately.
there is a data thing
So
going
you're going
on.
to get that mouse thing that automatically moves your mouse so your boss knows you're still working. Remember those things?
Don't give any kids any ideas.
Right.
I don't know. I remember some of these people
Not
that
helpful.
did work from home 10 years ago and they had
That's
one of
funny.
those
Yeah,
moves your mouse. You've heard about it.
I have.
Yeah, no, we don't really need to contribute to what is essentially the beginnings of ESG scores for kids. And that you know, people all day long say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. But you know what? No, we're seeing where the proof, where that's happening. Any educational vendor that sells an app or any computerized device, to a school is allowed to access their data and share it as long as it's for an educational purpose.
Right.
You can make up anything to be an educational purpose.
Isn't
So,
everything anyway?
pretty much everything and anything, which is why the library books can be there, because it all has an educational purpose.
Yeah.
But we had some good developments on the library.
Oh, we got great
issue.
developments on the library.
Today?
Today was a
Yes, today.
fantastic day.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, tell them.
Or you don't?
HB. Well,
HB
you
900.
watched the hearing,
Got all the
didn't you?
numbers.
She
memorized.
watched the
sorry.
hearing while I was working, helping
I'm gonna
parents.
put links to all these
Sorry.
House bills
Yes.
into the
No,
show
it's
notes for
HB
people so that
900.
people can link directly to them and then
Yeah.
read them or see them.
Okay, so the other
Jared
reason why
Patterson.
people in this area might be interested is because some of you, if you're on the Denton side of the district, it's your representative who actually brought the bill forward. His name is Jared Patterson.
Oh, yeah.
And
We know
he
Jared.
engaged with the district early on. But I'll tell you what, this should be encouraging, because honestly, I don't know about you. I think we have no intention to be at war with any school district. That's not the thing. We want solutions. We want better outcomes for our kids, period.
Right.
And I think teachers and administrators, everybody wants better outcomes. Let's just go get them done, right? Let's make that happen.
100%.
And so Jared Patterson, wanting a better outcome than what we had there, he engaged with some of the book vendors that were involved with Prosper's book buying. Because in the early days of identifying what was in our library, we realized, and the district was honest about it. In small meetings, they said, look, we got to buy 10 or 12,000 books at a time. And, when we didn't know that desks and windows were coming in,
Yeah.
Dr. Ferguson said, the books came and you got a white glove service, and they put them all on the shelf. And okay, we didn't know. I got all the grace in the world for that. Let's go clean it up. Let's go fix it.
Yeah.
So Jared Patterson talked to the vendors, and one of our vendors was really good and one of them was really poor. And so he explained to me later that he got his idea for his legislation from the good vendor and was absolutely compelled to do it after talking to the bad vendor, who said, I'm not going to. Prosper was trying to figure out how can we, they were doing a very good thing. They were saying, how can we vet our vendors so that we're not working with vendors who would sell this crap into our schools?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's admirable.
Yeah.
One of them said, we didn't know. Sorry, we're gonna self-monitor. And the other one said, I'm not doing all that, but unless I'm made to, unless it's a law.
Yeah.
So he went out.
Jared Patterson.
So he went out and he did it. And so today on the House floor, that was heard in a second reading and overwhelmingly passed 95 to 58. Okay, Democrats, I think 9, 10, or 11, because I'm not sure who was not in the room at the time, 9, 10, or 11 Democrats voted for that bill. So it will be heard one more time, maybe tomorrow. That'll be its third hearing on the floor. It'll get moved over to the Senate. The Senate has another bill similar to it that Angela Paxton is carrying. They will pass that quickly. And it's become a priority for the Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan. it's going to get passed. So parents should know that book vendors will now be held accountable. There will be a book, there will be, what do you call them? A guide, and they have to have ratings. And anything that's really sexually explicit is out of the libraries. But there will be some books. And I don't know if The Bluest Eye as a title might be considered one of these books, but let's say, for instance,
Lonesome Dove, that came up a lot in the
oh
committee
yes,
hearings.
yes,
Lonesome
yes.
Dove?
Mr. Tallarico brought up
James
Lonesome
Tallarico is
Dove.
a state rep who kept bringing up Lonesome Dove.
Okay, well, let's say you have a book and it has sexual content in it, and it might be offensive to some, but it's relevant because it's on a reading list or it's an AP reading book or whatever. It would be labeled as sexually relevant.
Yep.
So that if it were assigned, you'd end up knowing that your kid had to access a sexually relevant book, and you could say yay or nay. Not that selection. So it's good. It creates
It creates two categories of books: sexually explicit, which are
Can't be
can't
in
have
the-
them. Period.
Right.
Whether it's heterosexual, homosexual, whatever, it doesn't specifically target LGBTQ students, which
Right.
was a very common theme at the committee hearings.
At the
Folks claiming that it did. And then there's sexually relevant, which is the second category.
Right. And so if a book vendor sells those books in, or if a school district is in possession of those books, it's a violation of the law. The vendor can lose their ability to do business in Texas at all, which is Texas is quickly becoming the number one education market in the country. I'm sure it's eclipsed California. They're not honest about their numbers at all in California. So I think Texas has becoming the largest education market in the country. And so we will be a very desirable place to do business, and people will want to comply with that law.
Well, they are the top two most populous states in the U.S., right? California with like 40 million, Texas like, I guess California is like 39, Texas like 30. And in 2000, Texas was at 20 million and California was at 33. So Texas has just been growing like crazy. And you're sharing a statistic about Collin County and Denton County. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a graph I saw recently that had the top 5 counties in the United States that have lost population, and then the top 5 counties that have gained population. And the top 5 that had lost were places you'd expect: California, the East Coast, probably New Jersey, New York, somewhere in there in Chicago. And then of the top 5 that have gained it, Denton and Collin County were 2 of the top 5.
That's wild. That's wild.
So we are a melting pot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ground zero for school board shenanigans.
Well, you know what?
Here's what
I'd say. I'd say just don't take it for granted that you moved to the safe place.
Oh, yeah.
You did not. And no place in the country is a safe place.
Freedom isn't free.
No, it's not. So we have to fight for it. And you know what? I say, grow your courage, and just be the parent God needs you to be for your kids, because ultimately, you know what? You're the one who's tasked with raising them, right? So you just got to grow your courage, step up, and stand in the gap for them. And you know what? I hope that we get to a point when we don't have this war with school districts. We're not looking at us like we're the enemy somehow. We are not the flippin' enemy. We send our kids to your schools.
Yeah.
Okay. This whole concept of parents or partners. Look, I got new language for them, that we're not partners. We are primary in the education of our children in all matters. And while we do subsidize out the education of our children to the school, we expect respect in that exchange. And they should not try and take over our relationship.
Yeah.
Not ever.
Amen.
Always assume. And you know what? If you feel like you got a parent problem or a parent culture problem or a family culture, bring those parents in and do the education with the parents.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how many bills.
Right.
Let's add this to the TEKS. Let's add that to the TEKS. Teachers they're buried in TEKS. We got too many TEKS. Instead, stop trying to add on more stuff that we got to teach the kids, and bring in the parents and give them the responsibility of sharing the stuff with their kids. Make them parent.
Love it.
Yes.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yes.
Well, we're coming up on time. I've loved this. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
This is everything I thought it was going to be.
Yay.
I can't wait to have you guys back.
fun.
So we should definitely do this again and make this kind of an ongoing thing, because I think parents in the area would love to hear more, love to understand what is happening, because it's like you said, it's you can't just assume that you're moving into an area where it's all, roses and lollipops.
Right.
No, it's all root beer streams and lollipop
Root
trees.
beer
I
streams
think
and
is what
lollipop
she's thinking
trees.
of.
Yeah,
But-
that's the roses.
So how can our listeners support you guys in our fight to make education great again?
The best thing you can do is please engage in your kids' education. I know it's super boring, but go to school board meetings. Just show up because you learn a lot there. Actually, you do. That's the best place for you to start learning. Engage with your kids' education. If you have the time to volunteer, do volunteer. If you don't have the time to volunteer, you can also watch the school board meetings online. So you can watch them from home. Just be engaged with what's happening. The other thing I would recommend is that parents follow along with Texas Education 911.com. So TexasEd911.com.
I'm gonna put that in the show notes too. Yeah. We'll
and
get all those
they
links
can
in
learn
there.
about what our priorities are. This is literally a network of parents, dozens and dozens of parents from all over the state of Texas who've decided that the problems in the schools have gone too far, and they've decided to put their creative energies together to work towards solutions. And this is what the legislators are responding to. They're like, you came with solutions. You're drafting bills. You worked to impact the Republican Party platform. And then you brought the solutions through from resolutions all the way to bill proposals. We're walking hallways. We work like lobbyists, but on behalf of parents.
Yeah.
And so, take us seriously, for goodness sake, and join the movement. And the other thing I would say is I'm going to give you a QR code that parents can use to report a praise or a problem in their school district. So no matter where because we need the 411 about the 911. Okay.
Yeah.
We say there's a 911 in Texas public schools and we need to solve it, but we need the 411 about the 911.
Yeah.
And we brought it from our own kids' experience, and parents are doing that all over the state, but we're going to give you a QR code that parents can use so that they can submit their own 411.
Awesome.
That doesn't mean tattling on districts. And I don't want, I'm not taking the heat on that. We ask parents to report a problem or a praise. Okay. It's neutral. We are not trying
both
to.
ways. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
What's
you
working, what's not? We
Right.
want to know both.
Right.
and you know what? And I hope people will take that seriously and not bomb it. Okay. Just do the right things. If you have evidence,
Some will, some
Be
won't.
honest and
We
be
can't
honest,
help
be
you.
truthful.
Right. Yes.
Remember, truth matters.
right. If you have a serious concern, send it in. If you have this is the best thing because my district does this, and especially teachers, because sometimes teachers know about how solutions work inside classrooms. Let us know so that people in other districts can say, hey, I want to go to my school board meeting. And I want to bring that positive solution to this board, my board, because you do that over there in that district and I want it here.
Yeah.
I asked in my grievance, I said, can we pass a board policy so that we always ask for parents' permission? Well, it's kind of crickets, but but if other parents showed up and said, oh, I want a board policy like that. Fort Worth does it. This district's going to do it. That district's going to do it. And I want it here. Oh, you know what? Then you got more parents engaging like that. So join us, give us your praise and your problems, bring the evidence. We don't activate on anything that doesn't have evidence. So you know what? Get a screenshot or a recording or what have you. If you need legal help, you can reach Janelle that way too, because, if you say you need legal help, then we can forward you through to Janelle services there too, but it's not a lead generator for her. It's for us to understand what parents are really dealing with in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's so many parents that need help. Honestly, it's overwhelming, but just my closing thoughts, I guess I'm going to steal the phrase you just used, which was grow your courage. And I would just encourage folks that are listening to speak up, use their voice. And it's easy to be comfortable. It's easy to say, well, this issue didn't affect my child personally, so it's not really my problem. But ultimately, it affects all of us. It affects our community. It affects all of our schools. And it may affect your child personally one day. So grow your courage, speak up, stand up for what's right, and shout out to the people who are doing the good things and hold the people who aren't accountable.
Yeah. Well, thank you for what you ladies are doing. It's awesome. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time tonight, and can't wait to
Stellar
do it again.
dudettes. Stellar dudettes.
Mega.
Make
Yes.
education great again.
Hashtag Mega Texas.
Are you listening? Damn.
All right, dudes and dudettes, that's a wrap for this episode of Dudes Talking Freedom. Special thanks to Janelle Davis and Aileen Blachowski for joining us in studio tonight. For DTF, this is Jeremy,
This is Luke.
and we'll see you next time.